Welcome to Safety Spectrum, your environmental health and safety connection. This program is a presentation of the Michigan Safety Conference. For almost a century, the annual conference has provided credible educational opportunities and valuable support to the safety and health practitioner by offering 120 instructional programs along with exhibits highlighting the latest in safety equipment, instrumentation, and demonstrations. To learn more about the conference, please find us at safetyconference.org. Welcome to Safety Spectrum, the podcast for the Michigan Safety Conference. I'm your host, Sheila Ide. The Michigan Safety Conference's mission is to enhance workplace safety and health by sharing EHS best practices, provide education, and create a community of experts to help eliminate workplace injuries and fatalities. Our program today is Enhancing Your Career Through Volunteering. You know, the backbone of many associations and conferences, as well as their strength, is their volunteers. Along with learning opportunities, these activities can also enhance your resume and future job opportunities. Our speaker today will discuss this aspect. Cindy Ostrowski is a certified industrial hygienist who established her own consulting firm, CAO Consulting, LLC. She has over 30 years of experience in the field of industrial hygiene and holds a Master's of Science degree in Occupational and Environmental Health from Wayne State University. As an industrial hygienist, Cindy evaluates and controls occupational hazards, which include chemical, noise, biological, physical, and ergonomic hazards. Cindy has served on the MIOSHA Board of Health and Safety Compliance and Appeals. She has also served as a board member, secretary, treasurer, and president for both the American Industrial Hygiene Association and its local chapter, the Michigan Industrial Hygiene Society. She currently serves as president of the Michigan Safety Conference, celebrating its 95th year, which will be held in Lansing on April 14th and 15th. Thank you for joining me today on Safety Spectrum, Cindy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, first of all, I always like to ask folks, talk about your company and also why you got into safety and health.
Well, like most of us, I think that come into safety and health, especially in industrial hygiene, we kind of fall into it by accident. So my bachelor's of science was actually in clinical lab sciences, and I worked in a local hospital in Detroit as a microbiologist, and I was doing that for 4 years. And after the 4 years, it was kind of like, okay, I'd like to do something more than what I was doing. So then I looked to see how can I apply my bachelor's of science degree? Like I didn't want to just give that up, right? So I wanted to look to see how can I apply it in a master's program. So I looked both at the University of Michigan and Wayne State University at their graduate programs to see how I can apply my bachelor's. And I came across this thing called industrial hygiene, which I never heard of. And I had all the prerequisites because I had all the science and the math. And the reason why I ended up selecting Wayne State University is because you could go there part-time in the evening. So I didn't have to give up working at the hospital. So then I made that choice. And I'll never forget my first class. It was air sampling, and the instructor was a CIH from Chrysler at the time. And he started talking about welding and all these operations. And I'm like, oh my God, I have no idea what this guy is talking about. I think I made the wrong choice. I shouldn't be in here. And I went to talk to him, and he was like nervous because he was a new professor. And he's like, no, stay with it. Stay with it. You'll do good. You'll do good. You'll learn. So I did stay with it. And I'm grateful that I did do it because it ended up being a really good decision for me as a profession. So then my very first job out of school, I worked for a regional insurance company. And as a industrial hygienist in a regional insurance company, you're going to a lot of different industries because it was more from the workers' comp side. So I got to see a lot of manufacturing, and I learned a lot. I always say, as an industrial hygienist for an insurance company, we are doing a lot of work for tier 1, tier 2 suppliers to the automotive industry, because we are in Detroit. And I always say I could sit in a car and I can pretty much tell you how everything is made because I've pretty much seen everything made. So that being said, I worked for the insurance company for like 18 years, and then they had a change of focus. They decided they were going to maintain loss control with the safety side, but they didn't want to continue with industrial hygiene. So that's when I decided I'm going to do my own thing. And so I said, well, I'll try it, see how it goes. If that doesn't work out, then, I'll look for, another job. But the beauty of it all is that I had so many contacts from all the different companies that I'd done work for through the insurance company. I already had a built-in client base. So I was very fortunate because then a lot of those companies would just call me direct and say, hey, can you come in and do our air monitoring, our noise monitoring? Can you do our industrial hygiene surveys for us? And as it's progressed over the years, it's all my work has been word of mouth. I haven't had to, advertise. I've never had to promote it. It's always by word of mouth, and it's worked out very well for me. So I've been very fortunate that way.
Yeah, I'm glad to see industrial hygiene is getting the recognition that it needs because my gosh, it's as big as the safety side of it. But trying to train people, believe me, as a regular safety person, I had to do a lot of kind of oddball things in the industrial hygiene realm. So I appreciate it when the experts would come in, like people reacting to paint. Oh, we're starting to feel faint. We're having heart palpitations. We're just painting. That's all we're. So
Right.
even things as are worrying about mold, things like that. It's more calming people down that they're probably not going to die right now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. It's always, yeah. I have so many stories where employees are, and I get it. It's okay to question. I have no problem with that.
Yep.
But you just have to be able to explain to them, give them I'm a firm believer in giving them the big picture. These are what your potential exposures are. This is how we're going to monitor them. And then, do do the survey, get the results, and then making sure that management explains or at least gives them those results so they can understand what it is that they're dealing with. If they're overexposures, then what are we going to do to address it? And then if the results come back, when we're within compliance and there's no risk, then they need to know that as well. So I'm a firm believer in working directly with the employees on those issues.
I think a hygienist told me once, they said everyone is sensitive to something in an unknown quantity, and you never know when that's going to happen. I thought that's a pretty succinct definition of industrial hygiene.
Yeah, yeah,
Protect everybody.
exactly. That's our goal.
Basically. So, how did you get involved in volunteering in your profession?
So, as soon as I was graduating with my master's degree, I immediately joined the American Industrial Hygiene Association because I really felt, that's my profession. I should be a member of that. So I immediately joined. And then, we had our local chapter, the Michigan Industrial Hygiene Society. And as a student, I would attend those meetings. And of course, the thought behind that is, I'm new to the profession. I really didn't have any experience. So to me, joining the local chapter was hopefully to network and get to know people in the field and, look for job opportunities. And then once I was involved as a student and then I graduated, because now people knew who you were and they saw you were active, you come to meetings. And then I was approached to run for the board for the local chapter. So then I did that. And then, of course, they always encourage you to move along. So then I became the secretary, treasurer, and then president. And then while I was working, or I shouldn't say working, but while I was volunteering with the Michigan Industrial Hygiene Society, I had the opportunity to go to what they refer to as leadership meetings with national AIHA in Washington, D.C. And then when you're there, you meet their staff. They have a huge staff. They have like 50 people, but you get to know the staff. And then you also meet other professionals that are volunteering on the local level, but then you also meet the folks that are volunteering on the national level. And for whatever the reason, I caught the attention of some of the people on the national level, and then they approached me and said, would you please run for the board on the national? And I did, and I was shocked, to be honest with you, that my first time running for the board, I was elected. So I'm like, okay, so now I guess I'm on the board for AIHA. And then as time went on, it's a 3-year term. Then I moved on to secretary, and then I went to treasurer, and then I went through the presidency. I actually gave them 13 years of volunteer time with AIHA. So I do think it's important for the volunteering. But
So, do you
that's how
think
I
that continuing involvement helped you in your career? Or
Oh, definitely. I think it's good because well, first of all, it gets your name out there. And then as an independent consultant, then people know, oh, you're an independent consultant. If I need help, I can call you. And when you're on the national level, now you're meeting people, around the country. And so you're meeting a lot of folks who can reach out and, help you, or you can help them address their industrial hygiene service needs, now I'm looking nationally, not just locally. So I think from that perspective, it really helped because it's all, I think a lot of our work, even if you're working for a company like in the corporate level, it's always good to network. And one of the things that I found with networking, especially in this profession, both the safety and IH, you can call other colleagues and I can call like other independent consultants and say, hey, I've got this issue. I've got this, problem at a plant. I'm not sure how to address it. Have you ever worked with this? And I can say our fellow colleagues are so willing to help you and answer your questions and give you good information and put you in the right direction. So I think that's one of the most important things with volunteering is you get to know more people. You can expand like your knowledge by working and getting information from them.
I think the
So I think that's
safety
really
conference is the same idea, is that you can call the head of Chrysler, who's maybe run these tests a million times in a small company, and say, well, what were your results type of thing. So,
correct.
and you feel like you're making a difference too, being part of these organizations, I think, that
Yeah.
you're actually setting up the legislation that may be coming down the pike, or you may be the people that they're going to talk to about what are your results, what have you found, what's your experience in this. So hopefully we're having an impact on a national and local level, being
Yeah, the
part of
other
these.
thing I've also found too is sometimes you may have an idea of how you want to do things. You might already have that, how you want to move forward. But then to talk to other people or even attending like the Michigan Safety Conference technical sessions, or if you go to your national conferences, sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I've already heard this topic. I've worked with it, many, many times, but it's always good to hear it again to reinforce, oh, I am doing it the right way. I am addressing it the correct way. I'm doing things the way they should be done. So for me, it reinforces what I'm practicing.
Yeah. And a lot of times in smaller companies, you may be the only person doing
Correct.
all of it, safety, health, construct, whatever, and to be able to go someplace and talk to like-minded people that
Yes.
can help. It's good. One thing I always told people when I was in personnel, younger people that don't have the experience and are trying to find a job, I said, volunteer.
Yeah.
The movers and shakers are in these groups, and you're going to make contacts, and it's going to help you down the road. So that's something
Correct.
I've always told young people starting out that don't have the experience yet.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the opportunities for professionals?
For volunteering.
Yep.
Yeah, so kind of like I've already talked about is, always look at your local chapters because believe me, they're always looking for people to step up and be in those officer positions or, to work on some committees. The one thing I would say, sometimes I think, I know when we approach like, because I did some teaching for Wayne State University. And when you talk to the students, they're always a little leery. And I know I was too when I first was going to the meetings. You see these folks that are, they have all this seniority and they're, like you mentioned already, they're a corporate IH or a corporate safety professional for like one of the, Ford or GM, or, they're working for really big companies. And you always feel like, oh, do I really belong here? I don't have that same level of experience. I don't have the same level of knowledge, but you got to start somewhere, right?
Yep.
And I have always found that, especially on the local level, they're always looking for people to step up and be officers because everybody's busy. We get it. You're working, you've got family, you've got commitments. But, I think most local chapters try really hard to not waste your time, like, keep short meetings and, be efficient. But I think, don't worry about like, oh, I'm not going to know. Hey, they're just happy to have you stepping forward because it's hard to get volunteers. So if you think you want to do it, go ahead and do it. And then from there, like I said, then it built on. I went onto the national scene. So again, I know at ASSP, they have a board, they have the same type of officers, they have lots of technical committees you can get involved in. And the same thing with AIHA, lots of technical committees. The technical committees, you don't have to be an officer. You can just be what we consider a contributor. And by doing that, again, you might have, let's say you're real interested in noise or it's air monitoring or it's radiation safety, whatever it might be. You're on these technical committees. So you get to know people, you get to learn contacts. And a lot of times what we find is the folks that they start on the committee level in the national level, and then they move up to the board because now they know people, people know them. And like I said, we're always really looking for energetic, people very willing to step forward and participate. Because we have to realize, even though you may have a staff, like at AIJ, I mentioned they have like 50 staff, they're going to do the bulk of the work, but you still need the volunteers because you're the face of the profession to your professionals, to your colleagues. So it's really good. I just think it's a great opportunity to look at local and then consider national, and don't be afraid to do it.
Yeah, I was the president of our local Lansing ASSE chapter. Of course, that year I was also the program chair and I think the treasurer. So, yeah, always looking for. But I did find when you go to the national conventions or conferences, we were bending the ear of government officials about confined space. I mean, this goes way back. This before they had a confined space standard. And we were constantly working these people lobbying that we need a comprehensive standard for this. So I do remember you do have an impact at those conferences.
And that's a good point. You can have a big, especially at the national level, because we do have a lobbyist at AIHA, and they're always looking at what's coming down the pipe from OSHA, and sometimes some of the state level. I know a couple of times we've gotten involved with state legislation where they were coming up. A lot of it had to do more with, for a while there, we had some push on people trying to establish themselves to do air and noise monitoring, which would have interfered with those of us who are industrial hygienists and our CIH. And so we did go to Lansing to speak to the politicians to say, hey, this isn't such a good idea. You've already got this in place. So you can get involved with legislation, whether it be local, regional, or national. So that's important.
This we probably maybe already covered this, but switching up the same question, why did you get involved? If we covered everything, why did you get involved in volunteering for your profession?
Well, I think that, like I said, it all comes down to, well, for me, I wanted to be involved. I just felt it was the right thing to do. And, like when I started out with the insurance company, I was the only industrial hygienist on staff. And then, of course, then I went into my own consulting business. You're like a one-person show. So it's by volunteering, you get to network and you meet those other professionals. So we've already talked about that. But the other thing to keep in mind is, you keep your ears open for other job opportunities to see if you maybe want to move, change your focus, do something different. But also, it's a resume builder. So it can even help you if you are looking for a new job. It just shows that you took the initiative to volunteer, to be involved. And then again, if you're on a chair on a committee or if you're on the board, it shows that you have leadership skills. It also demonstrates that you may have really good writing and personal skills, communications, because obviously if you're in those kinds of positions, you must be able to communicate, correct? So I just think it really looks good on your resumes. And also for, especially if you're a CSP or a CIH, being involved on a committee, you are able to get certification maintenance points or CEU points. So again, to maintain those certifications, you do have to get points, right? So by being on, if you're on a committee, like for CIH, it's a 0.5. But if you become an officer, it's a 1 point per year. So it's a great way to collect CEU or CM points if you have any certifications you have to maintain. So that was another plus for being involved. I was just looking at some of the other things we had talked about in the past.
Yeah, like what are some other benefits? I think we talked about, you often have a chance to be a speaker at one of these conferences and add
Correct.
your own knowledge or
Yeah.
teaching.
Yeah, and I think it also helped. Well, I already mentioned teaching, so I did teach at Wayne State University in the master's program. I've also taught at the University of Michigan, actually for the occupational nurses in their master's program, and it was a occupational safety course. So again, I think it's giving you visibility. So people either hear you speak or they meet you. They know what your background is. They know what your education is. I mean, I think it's really volunteering really, I think, opens a lot of doors, and it can open as many doors as you want it to open. Or you may say, no, I'm just good being on the local level. I have no interest in the national level. But, you want to do what you're comfortable with.
Mhm.
But again, don't be afraid to expand and reach out and do more. Because I think in the long run, you'll really get a lot out of it.
I think my involvement with the Michigan Safety Conference, I had opportunity to go like to classes where they were doing supervisory training or construction management, and they didn't have a safety component, which I thought was kind of bizarre. Why would you not be wanting to teach first line supervisors about safety? So I had the opportunity to go a few times to different universities and talk about it. Kind of
Yeah.
opened some eyes, which is it's kind of scary when you think about it.
Well, and you mentioned too leadership. So, like on the national level, and I believe ASSP has one too, and I know AIJ has one. We have a leadership program, and it's geared towards the younger professional. There's an age limit, like you have to be, I think you have to be less than 35 years old. But again, we usually reach out to the local chapters to nominate people to attend the leadership program. And the whole point of leadership program, it's a weekend. So I think it's over 2 days, but it's an opportunity to teach young professionals leadership skills. So there's classes, there's guest speakers to talk about, how to be a good leader, what skills do you need. So again, by being involved and people know who you are, because a lot of times those leadership programs have an application with it. So the more you're involved and you have somebody sponsoring you, then you have more opportunities to attend those types of courses or attend those types of programs. So again, by being a volunteer and attending and participating, it lets other people get to know you, and then it opens doors in other ways.
Think I'm glad you mentioned younger professionals because each generation is different in how
Mhm.
they relate, how they lead, how they get along with each other. So by keeping younger people interested in our profession, I mean, it's hard. You look around and there's not a lot of young people, and it's one of the most exciting professions I can think of, safety or industrial hygiene. It's a different problem every day, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
something to learn every day, but we really need to keep them interested. And these are the kind of things that keep them interested, I think.
And yeah, and I think I know with industrial hygiene, like from the AIJ perspective, we're losing because people are retiring. So we're losing our members just because, there's not as many people going into it. And people are retiring, and I'm sure that's probably happening with the safety profession as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think for us at experienced professionals, we need to involve those younger folks. So, if you see someone that is attending your local section, welcome them with open arms. I mean, be very friendly with them. Don't make them have to make the first move. Be friendly, encourage them, ask them to be involved. We need to get more young professionals interested in, they may come into safety, but we want to keep them in safety. I mean, a
Yep.
lot of times you hear sometimes people move then into production or they move into quality. It's like, well, we don't want to lose them, right? We want to keep them as safety and IH professionals. So, so for those of us who are involved with local chapters or the national level, be encouraging to the younger people, get them involved, ask them to participate, because we need to improve, we need to engage and then expand our membership.
It was funny. I just read an article and I was kind of surprised because I always felt the safety folks were the first ones to get cut. I don't know, overhead, whatever. But I read something that said safety jobs, industrial hygiene are pretty much recession proof because if it isn't a law, insurance companies, loss control, workers' comp, they are absolutely vital to keep your costs down. So, I mean, it's a moral issue, absolutely, but
Yeah.
it's also a nickel and dime issue
Yeah,
that,
and it's interesting you bring it up about insurance because when I did work for the insurance company, and I didn't realize it because until after a few years into it, then I realized, I actually when I would go in to do a survey, air monitoring, noise monitoring, and we make recommendations if we find something that's out of compliance or we need improvements, I actually found I had more, how do I want to say it, more behind what I was saying, even than my OSHA, because sometimes employers are like, well, we'll just pay the fine and we'll be done with it. But when it comes to insurance, if I go back and say, yeah, this is not a good insured, we're not going to insure them. If they can't get their workers' comp, that is a problem.
yep.
So, yeah, so I didn't realize it, but I have a little bit more pull in getting things done because if they lose their insurance, that's not good.
Right. You have to
Yeah,
cover there. Yeah.
yeah,
And all these things that came out of workers' comp as far as work hardening and, redoing the job and not blaming the employee. I mean, all of that is part of the safety industrial hygienist job. It really is to keep
right.
people working. What do we all want? We want to go home at the end of the day, do a good day's work, get
Yeah.
paid, and not get injured over it because the cost is terrible. Well, we're going to switch over.
Mhm.
We've mentioned the Michigan Safety Conference. What are the
Oh,
volunteering opportunities at the conference?
yeah.
Hundreds.
So actually, the way I got involved with the Michigan Safety Conference is actually through my participation with the local chapter, MIHS, the Michigan Industrial Hygiene Society. So one of the things that was required was that when you were the president of the Michigan Industrial Hygiene Society, you were automatically on the IH division at the Michigan Safety Conference.
Oh,
So that's how I got involved with the Michigan Safety Conference. And even though, like, because it was only a 1 year commitment, but after I did it, I was like, oh, I kind of like this committee. I like the people that were on it. And so then I decided, like, well, I'm going to stay on it, even though my commitment was finished. And of course, they were like, that's fine. Yeah, you can stay on the committee. And the thing that what we have to recognize with the Michigan Safety Conference is we have so many technical sessions, right? So you have all kinds of safety sessions, and then we have environmental sessions. We've got transportation.
construction.
I know we've got, yeah, construction, another one. And then we have the IH. So the one thing I always tell my group, because I'm the sitting chair, and I always tell my IH members is like, look, because they'll come up with topics and I'm like, well, that's not really industrial hygiene. That really belongs maybe environment or construction. And then we could offer it to those other committees. Because what I want to do is make sure we maintain the focus. My group is supposed to represent industrial hygiene topics because there's all these other sessions that are going to take care of all the other topics, right? So that way it's good for, like, we always try to have a basic day so that folks that are novices to the safety profession have an opportunity to learn, some things they may need. Because, like you said, sometimes a person's in a business and they're the only safety person, right? They only use one, and they're expected to know everything. IH, safety, ergonomics, I mean, everything.
And
So,
environmental too. They usually throw
yes.
that hat on you, which is a whole other set of standards. That drives me crazy.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I won't do environmental. Forms
It's a whole
in the
field.
reporting, it's like, yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah.
But so we recognize that, some folks are going to need something from an IH perspective. So we always try to have a basic, but then we also try to have advanced courses for those who are CIHs and they're coming to get their points, right? So that's always my focus with my group. And then from there, after participating for years with the IH division, then I was asked to be on the scholarship committee. So then I'm working with, and there's where we can really promote and get, hopefully grab those students and get them involved, right? Because,
Yeah.
we're giving them the scholarships. They come to the president's reception, they get to meet people, let them network, people get to see them. So hopefully now you're getting, kind of hooking them in so they stay within the profession and also participate local level. And then, of course, at the Michigan Safety Conference. And then from there, I got onto the awards committee. And then from there, I was asked to be on the board. And then I was approached to be in the officer positions. So again, every time I've joined something, local level, then they see you, you go to the national level, so that's why I think volunteering is important because it gives you a platform for yourself to
Mhm.
promote who you are and what you can bring to the table. So I strongly encourage folks to volunteer.
And what I think is interesting at the Michigan Safety Conference, I've been with it for more than 40 years. And
Yeah.
I think it's so interesting that even if you go through the officer chairs of the board, you're always doing something else. Like you're running the IH committee, you're on the awards. We all seem to wear several hats, no matter, and we don't disappear after we've been
Right.
president. We stick with it. We've got a lot of folks have been there a long time, which I think is marvelous.
Yeah.
So, what do you think your impact has been on the Michigan Safety Conference?
Well, like I said, my focus, again, because I'm representing IH, my focus is always making sure in that IH division, our technical sessions, again, we're helping those folks that are novice or don't really have an IH background and to give them hopefully some tools to help them with those types of things in their work. And then doing the advanced program. So then we can help CIHs maintain their certification maintenance points.
You want to mention a couple of the classes you're holding, or?
Yeah, so this year, because I was president, I was expected to come up with a theme, which I was like, oh, that's
I was
not,
going to ask you about that.
I know that's not typically, because we're kind of spoiled. So when you're on the national level, you have like these 50 staff people and they do all that. You just pretty much are the figurehead. You just show up, right? But at the Michigan Safety Conference, again, we're a smaller organization, and it was like, okay, you have to come up with an idea. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness. So again, I think you can tell from my speaking with you today is that, my focus is industrial hygiene. I mean, that's who I am. That's what I do. But it is the Michigan Safety Conference. So I thought to myself, well, how can I meld the two together to make it, a good theme? And then what are we going to do for our sessions for this year? So that's why I decided on doing total worker health, because when you look at total worker health, it's not just industrial hygiene, it's not just safety. So yes, we're looking at all those occupational exposures, both from a safety and a health side, but we also now have to think about the employee. What does the employee bring to the table? Because we have to recognize, everybody's different. You had mentioned it earlier about, people have different sensitivities, but we also have to think about, you're hearing more and more about mental stress. And we do have some sessions that are going to address that. So everybody has different things going on in their lives. They have family issues. They could have personal health issues that can impact what they're doing at work. So total worker health, the concept behind that is you're kind of looking at the whole picture, not just what's in the workplace, but then the person itself, the employee, the person that we're trying to help. So we have to recognize everybody's different, and people can bring things to the table that might impact the way we're doing things in the workplace. And so we have to keep that in the back of our mind as we're addressing the total picture of what an employee is doing on the job. So that's why I selected that. So our keynote this year is Dr. Rollman. She's from Iowa University, and she's actually a director for the Midwest for the Total Worker Health Program through NIOSH. So NIOSH, which is the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, which is the research arm of OSHA, they developed this concept, total worker health. It's been around for quite a while. It kind of lost some steam and then it picked up again. And so she's the director for the Midwest for this concept. So I think she's going to do a great presentation for us. And then she's been nice enough, after she does her opening session or the keynote session, she's going to do a 1-hour session right afterwards for the IH division. And that one is, she's going to go through a tool that NIOSH has developed to help you walk through and kind of do an assessment to address total worker health. So I think it was a nice tie-in. So I was appreciative that she was willing to do that for us.
Great. So why do you think this topic is important to talk about volunteerism?
Oh, to talk about volunteerism?
Yeah, why is it important?
Well, I think overall, everything that I've been talking about, I think people, you can get a lot. Well, you get what you want and what you put into it. But even if you only say, well, I can only go to meetings. Well, that's not really volunteering, but you're still participating, right? So go to your local sections, go to your, Michigan Safety Conference. And while you're there, meet people, and don't be afraid to step forward and say, I'd like to try this. Because even on the, in the local chapters, they have committees. You don't have to jump right into an officer position. And then even at the Michigan Safety Conference, we have all these different committees. You can pick a committee of something you're really interested in, like you mentioned, construction, or maybe it's radiation safety, or maybe it's, whatever you think you want to be involved in. And, it's kind of dip your toe into it, see what it's like, meet some people. And then you may find, as you get more comfortable, then you can move into some of these leadership roles. But I think the most important is the more time you can put into it, I think it'll benefit you in practicing your profession, because you can learn a lot from people. It may give you some more job opportunities that you weren't even aware of. I mean, how many times I come across something, it's like, oh, I didn't know they would need a safety person there. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
it just gives you hopefully will open your eyes to some other opportunities for you. And I think it'll make you a more well-rounded professional.
And I think in our earlier conversation, you mentioned it's a way of giving back. It's a way of giving back to your profession. And I think that's important too. Some
Yeah, and
personal,
I think,
make you
yeah,
feel
you're
good.
giving back. And remember too, for us folks that are more further along in our profession, helping those younger professionals. I think it's critical that we make them feel welcome, we get them involved, because we're going to need them. We're not going to all be here, we're not going to be here forever. So we need people to come in and take our place. So we have to be willing to bring them along, work with them, help them, answer their questions, be a mentor.
There
I
you go.
think mentoring can be very valuable because you're sharing with them your knowledge, which I think can be, very rewarding in itself. And then hopefully they get something out of it too. So yeah, I just think all around, I mean, any little bit you can do is a benefit for you and for whoever you're doing the
Keeps it
volunteering.
alive.
Yes.
And I've got to mention all the divisions we have.
Oh yeah, no.
We have construction, emergency management and fire, chemical, agriculture, environmental management, ergonomics, healthcare, industrial hygiene, metal fab, MyOSHA, public utilities, risk management, security, and transportation. So if you don't see something in there that doesn't apply to you, you're not looking too hard.
Yeah.
So any
Yeah.
final thoughts before we close?
Um, hopefully this went well. I appreciate the opportunity. I've always enjoyed, no matter what I got involved in, I've always enjoyed it. And you meet great people. We all come from different backgrounds, and it's just nice to see, how people, when you hear the stories, because none of us, I don't think a lot of us say, "Oh, I'm going to be a safety professional when I grow up," or "I'm going to be an industrial hygienist when I grow up." We all kind of fall into it by accident.
Yep, I
And
can relate to that.
yeah, and I just think for everybody who's found the profession in that way, they don't regret it. It's
Yeah.
always the best. Like for me, it's the best thing that happened to me.
Yeah, me too. I was a journalism major, so hey, go figure, right? Then I had to go learn all the other stuff, but that's okay. You write
Yeah,
in every job, I always say.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so I think it's pretty clear that a lot of value in relationship building can be obtained by volunteering. The Michigan Safety Conference is an all-volunteer organization of 170 AHS professionals, and its success relies on the commitment and value provided by these volunteers. The Safety Conference in Lansing on April 14th and 15th offers 120 classes, yep, in
Wow.
health, safety, construction, environmental, along with over 200 exhibitors. I'd like to again thank Cindy Ostrowski of CAO Consulting. She can be reached at cao.ostrowski@gmail.com. If you have any questions about this podcast, would like to register for the 2026 conference, or if you'd like to be a guest or sponsor one of our podcasts, information can be found on our website at michsafetyconference.org. Thank you for listening to Safety Spectrum. This is Sheila Ide.